Today, we're going to talk about the wall. Whether you're for or against the wall that President Trump is trying to build between the U.S. and Mexico, there's one thing that is definitely clear. We need to do something. Now, I could care less about whether they do or don't build the wall because, look, I've been down to the southern border where they do have a very large number of people who literally just walk through the wilderness, through a little mountain range or whatever it may be, and there's nothing on the other side. And they just come over, and there's traffic signs in San Diego, which I find interesting. I don't know if I can actually find a picture to put here, but there are actually traffic signs on the highway that essentially look like a family holding each other by the hand running across the highway. It's just like we have deer crossing in some states. Over there, you have to have signs that warn you about little Mexican families running across the highway. But the point about today's talk is that there are other solutions. Now, we still might want to have some sort of wall because there's terrorism and there's all sorts of other problems that happen without having at least some sort of control. But one thing that I remember vividly in the 1980s, early 80s, maybe I could find a clip for this somewhere, but Ronald Reagan had a different way of looking at things. His philosophy at the time was that Mexico, around that era, they had horrific financial situation. I think they had at that time, and I'm not exaggerating this, if I can find this statistic, I'll put it on the screen, but there was literally like a 50% unemployment in Mexico. I mean, it was horrible. So you could almost visualize right then and there why things started to change, where more and more Mexicans started coming over here. But Reagan's solution at that time was to do the opposite. Instead of finding ways of, well, I'm going to make those Mexicans pay for the wall, or I'm going to do this to the Mexicans because we've got a problem with jobs going south of the border, his approach was different. And, whether you do or don't agree with it, his approach was simply, let's create jobs in Mexico. Let's create business enterprises and factories, and let's do something for our neighbors. They are our neighbors. Let's do something for our neighbors to make their lives better. Because believe me, if there was better economic and social and living situation in Mexico, do you think for a minute you'd see the sort of mass exodus over to our side? And I mean, if you really think about it, if you have great business opportunities in Mexico, you'd actually see a reverse migration where some of the Mexicans who are already here would, without a doubt, go back home if they knew they could live in their hometown with the people they know and speaking the language they speak, and they could have a job there that is worth keeping. Wouldn't that solve the problem? Instead of finding ways of, I'm going to find a way to knock it to those Mexicans and make them pay for this wall, and they're going to hear from us, we're going to get those jobs back out of there. Look, we want jobs here. Don't get me wrong. But when we take jobs away from Mexico, all we're doing is making the Mexicans come back over here because we've eliminated their prosperity. We've taken away their hope down there. And one other interesting observation on that, to just prove this point, if you go into just about every town in this country these days, people say, look how many Mexicans there are here now. Right? One thing I noticed, and I've had a running joke every now and then because I'll actually see one. I'll say to someone, "Oh, there's the old Mexican. There's the old Mexican." It's a joke I have because I almost never see an old Mexican person, because it seems to me that almost all the Mexican immigrants over here, when they get to a point where they've made enough money, they go back home because Mexico is a beautiful place, and they want to be home. They want to be there. What they do is they retire back to Mexico because that's a beautiful country. It really is a beautiful country. I visited there. It is a beautiful place. And for what it's worth, you rarely see an elderly Mexican here because, again, once they've made a few dollars, they can go back there and live like kings. And hey, in a beautiful place like that, who wouldn't? So aside from the joke there, the reality of it is, if they had the means, the opportunity, or in this case, the savings, because a lot of them do. They save their money while they're working here, and then they go back home. They had financial possibilities that were there and genuine right in their hometown. We would have wonderful relationships with Mexico. They would have a beautiful country with opportunities and jobs just like here, and why shouldn't they? And that's today's idea of the day. All right, so that's today's idea of the day. I hope you liked it. If you visit ideaoftheday.com, you'll see a new one every day. Every day. Yeah, some of them don't suck. And don't forget to subscribe. And you can see them here every day. Brand new one. And some of my videos don't suck either.